We're very happy to be speaking about Caribbean women in leadership on this day. And it's Caribbean Women in Leadership is a non-political, multi-partisan and independent NGO established to monitor, strengthen and increase women's political participation and leadership in the region. Now, this is done through advocacy, networking, research and capacity building initiatives. To speak about all that and more, because there is a book on the cards, we have Miss Leah Thompson. She's a project officer. She joins us to tell us more. Thank you so much for joining us, Leah.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon.
And give us a little more information about the work of Caribbean Women in Leadership. Because what I just read off is a mouthful. But at the same time, what are some of the things that you all do?
So you gave an excellent summary, but I think essentially what we are is a network of women across the Caribbean who are working towards gender equality. So our sort of focus area is the underrepresentation of women in positions of leadership and decision making. This is a problem worldwide. It isn't just in the Caribbean, but worldwide there is this issue of the underrepresentation of women in leadership spaces. For example, in the Caribbean, we have, our populations tend to be about 50% men to women. However, the vast majority of leadership positions in business, politics, science, technology, those things go to men. So the work that we do is really around highlighting that gap, highlighting that, existing inequality in that area, and really showing everyone that equal access to leadership spaces, equal access to decision-making spaces is really a human right. So in doing that work, we work with activists, female parliamentarians, national gender departments, and we work to train and support women and young women as well to challenge the glass ceiling at work, to if a young woman may be seeking elected office or assuming some other position of leadership, we really find ways to support women in those situations. For example, we recently wrapped up our Young Women in Leadership initiative in Antigua and Barbuda, and that focused on building the capacity of women, fostering young women's interest in public leadership. So, we've hosted, even more recently, we've hosted workshops with female candidates in the recently concluded Trinidad by-election, the Tobago House of Assembly by-election, and the Belize municipal election that wrapped up last week. So, that's, I think, a good summary of the work we do. I work at the regional secretariat. However, we have 7 national chapters across the Caribbean, and we're very, very proud of that. We have chapters in the Bahamas, in Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Belize, and St. Lucia. So, the national chapters really are the heart of what we do at CIWiL.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask, because I say, okay, well, that is a tall order. Even if you look at doing the research, getting statistics, seeing who are some of the players on the ground so that you can target individuals to have these workshops. Yes. But I was wondering, how does that take place in terms of around the Caribbean, getting those things done? But I'm glad you raised the fact that the heartbeat or the people doing that are these country chapters. But what is the process of liaising or saying, okay, well, we want to do A. We need to see where are some of the places that we do it. What is the process of communicating and getting that information across to say, okay, well, we'll do it here, and in this territory, but not necessarily these as yet, because we need to raise capacity in some other levels?
Understood. So I think we have been lucky. The regional secretariat has fairly recently been established, but this work has been going on for quite a long time. Some of the initial versions of CIWiL existed as early as 1998, where women like Hazel Brown, Lydia Nandy Trotman-Joseph, Dr. Rosina Wilshire, who are all stalwarts around women's rights in the Caribbean, were already sort of planting the seeds of what CIWiL would become in 1998. So I think the work of those women in research, the work of those women really in maintaining that network with women across the region helped really start to understand where the gaps were and where we needed to work. And then from there, we really just reached out. We reached out to women in other women's rights groups, women who, would have been doing some of this work already to support their communities, to end gender inequality, and sort of created the hub here at the regional secretariat to stay in communication, have our our national chapters, staying in contact with women on the ground so that they sort of feed that information to us. They let us know what's going on. They let us know where the issues are. And we then craft our programming, craft our support around that feedback from the national chapters.
And I'm glad you mentioned names, and one of those names you mentioned would have been Hazel Brown, because I believe it's been years that she's been putting in the work. And speaking of putting in, I believe one of the projects that she was working on was Put a Woman in Parliament. So in terms of being able to build on the work that others have done and continue to do and stand on shoulders as opposed to trying to reinvent the wheel, what kind of communication and partnership do you have with people like that on the ground? Because sometimes it seems as though somebody just gets a brand new idea and things that no one has before them has tried to do those sorts of things. So how do you liaise with these stalwarts and honor their contribution while taking it forward?
So the answer to that question is extremely easy. We are very lucky in that a lot of those women would have come together to form the regional board of CIWiL. So we have Hazel Brown, Dr. Rosina Wilshire, Judith Wedderburn out of Jamaica, Lynette Vassell, Luna May Gordon, Lydia Nandi Trotman Joseph, and Hazel Brown, a long list of these women who really we were generous enough to come together and put their time and attention to this particular issue. So we are very, very lucky to have their input and feedback in everything that we do. Their support has made CIWiL what it is, for sure.
And we have just under 2 minutes on this side of the conversation, but what are some of the core values that help to guide the actions of CIWiL in terms of doing the work that you do?
So I think a major value of CIWiL is obviously promoting gender equality, advancing human rights, but also specific to the type of work we do is this concept of transformational leadership. So it's not, you mentioned the Put a Woman campaign, and exactly as you say, we're trying to build now on that and really think about when these women are in power, or when anyone is in power, what kind of leaders are they? What kind of leaders do we want? So, in thinking about building just societies, equitable societies, transformational leadership asks us to really think about who we are as leaders, who we are as citizens, what are we, why do we want to lead in whatever capacity that leadership may be. Why do we want to lead? What do we want to bring to the table? Are we there to serve? Who are we there to serve, ourselves or others? So, transformational leadership, I think, is a really core tenet of what CIWiL does, and the workshops and the trainings that we do, that's really central to a lot of it.
And I think I want to continue the conversation looking at transformative leadership when we return. We're speaking with Leah Thompson of CIWiL. When we return, we have so much more. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We are speaking with Leah Thompson, Project Officer of Caribbean Women in Leadership. Now, with regard to transformative politics, Leah, that transformation, where does it start? Do we look at macro or do we look at an individual? Does it spread from one to the other? How do you address it at CIWiL?
So excellent question. And it really starts at micro. It starts with self. So I think the thinking goes, if I see a problem in the world and I really want to make this change and help advance some cause or some issue, where do I start? Where's the best place to start? And transformational leadership asks us to really start with self. It's easy to, I think, sort of see the problems and the issues external to ourselves. But I think if we start with self, go through that journey internally, understand what our values are, understand what we're trying to bring into the world, I think that brings us a clarity that we are now as leaders able to carry into the work that we do, carry into our leadership. A popular image associated with transformational leadership is sort of that pond with the ripple, and you are that rock, you are the first pebble that creates the ripple. But you need to really think about what type of ripple you want to create, and it really starts with you doing that self-work before beginning that journey.
I really appreciate the fact that you talk about that ripple and how it is, what is the catalyst or the beginning of that change, that spark. And looking at the information I see on the website, I see one of the things that CIWiL is also involved in is male inclusion. Now, and I want you to expand on that a little bit, please, where we see a lot of men at this point in time trying to make efforts or have efforts to help to be partners. There's a difference in nuance between being an ally or being a hero or protector. How do you all approach it?
So definitely male inclusion is important. We live in the world together. I think the point is for us to learn to work together towards a better, more equitable society. So at CIWiL, we, for example, have a Men as Allies series where we engage with men who are already doing the work, men who are already out there thinking about issues of male allyship, thinking about how they can show up for the women in their lives, but also thinking about how they can engage with the men in their lives who may not be quite there yet on some of these issues. So we've been really lucky to partner recently with Rashad Brathwaite. He is a lecturer out of Barbados, and Amilcar Sanatan, also a lecturer but out of Trinidad and Tobago. So they have been participating in our Men as Allies series recently. So that's going to come out as a podcast in the close future, in the near future. But yeah, I think starting to have those conversations, starting to ask exactly those questions, and most importantly, listening to the women in their lives, listening to what they need, what they don't need. As you say, it may not be that we need a hero. It may just be, we need somebody to listen to the issues and work with us towards these solutions.
So even though you're working towards that sort of inclusion, I still saw the post recently that more women leaders are needed in policy areas, places that we're making decisions, COVID-19 recovery boards,
Yeah.
looking at the fact that this doesn't just jump out of a vacuum. And it seems as though there's some sort of mentoring process that you'd be establishing for young women. Give me a little more info about that, thanks.
So CIWiL does quite a lot of, we have different areas that we will, so definitely a big focus for us recently has been that support for young women in leadership, ensuring that, they have that exposure to leadership spaces, exposure to women who have already kind of broken down certain barriers, who are willing to kind of, talk about what that was like, talk about some of the experiences. But broader than that, or beyond our Young Women in Leadership initiative, particularly around International Women's Day, a lot of our campaigning and a lot of our focus would have been around the theme for International Women's Day this year, which aligns perfectly with what CIWiL does. So the global theme, or the UN theme for International Women's Day 2021 is Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. So that's why a lot of our posts would have been asking us to really think about what an equal future looks like, particularly now that we dealing with this pandemic. The pandemic really has changed lives and not always for the better. Women have found themselves in a lot of difficult situations, around gender-based violence. Women are expected to work from home while also they're also teaching kids who are at home, and also often are bearing a disproportionate level of care duties in the home. It's a lot, women are going through a lot. And the theme this year, and what CIWiL has been really highlighting in our recent posts and campaigns online, has been asking us to think about, are we taking the lived realities of women into account as we talk about recovery from COVID-19, as we talk about building back better? Are we really listening to women? There was I think an article recently that really highlighted, a lot of women who feel that, after COVID-19, nobody is really listening or understanding of the extremely difficult situation that they're in. They have kids to take care of, they have lost jobs. And I think this International Women's Day in particular, are asking all of us to really think about more seriously and take action on is, how do we ensure that women have a say in decisions that are affecting their lives? How do we ensure that they have a say in, solutions for not just for themselves, but their families, for their communities? And I think it's just really important for us now, as we think about International Women's Day and the contributions of women to society, to think about what women are going through right now, and are we really valuing that contribution?
And speaking of that contribution, Leah, it's sometimes easier to do something when you realize that someone has done it before. With that in mind, the last 2 minutes, I want to talk about the book, please.
Right.
So what is this?
We are really, really happy to announce that Caribbean Women in Leadership is writing a children's book. And the main focus, or I think reason that we wanted to write this book, is to highlight the overlooked contributions of women to the Caribbean landscape. There's no denying that women have really contributed to the political, social, economic landscape of the region. But a lot of times, I think those histories, those stories are overlooked. They are minimized, and at worst, sometimes even totally ignored. So CIWiL really wanted to take the opportunity to highlight those stories. We were finding that, for example, it's easier to kind of find out or get information on the story, history, or biography of a male leader. Those tend to be more accessible. But our Caribbean history really is incomplete unless we recognize and we value the contribution that women have made to make our region, make the Caribbean what it is. I was talking to a friend the other day about this whole issue of not necessarily highlighting what women have given to the region. And we were looking at all the airports in the Caribbean. So, we have the A&R Robinson airports in Tobago, we have Frankie Adams in Barbados, we have Norman Manley in Jamaica, we have George Charles in St. Lucia, and that's just off the top of my head. Where is the Claudia Jones airports? Where is the Mary Sue Cole, or the Dame Billy Miller, or Nanny of the Maroons? Are we really celebrating those women in the same way? So I think that was the motivation behind coming together to put this book on. And if I may as well, just use the opportunity to invite the public to join us in this process of selecting the women that are going to be included in the book. So we invite everybody to, sure, that's perfect. I think you were gonna.
No, and we'll actually follow up on this process, Leah, and we want to thank you for making the time, as well as wishing you a blessed International Women's Day. Today being the day, so we have some colors on, and thank you for the work that you are doing. And on behalf of the entire news team, I'm DK Roster. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.